Testing.
But don't hurt you.
Good morning and welcome to our Port Hueneme Historical Society Museum. That's quite a mouthful. Today we're going to be talking about the St. Francis Dam disaster, and we have a couple of local connections to that. The water didn't come anywhere near here, but we have Thomas Gerberding Bard, who was, I guess he did some rescue and recovery when he lived near Bardsdale. And we also have Richard Bard, who was on the Ventura County Committee that awarded money to the people the families of the victims who had claims against, I guess, the city of Los Angeles. Yeah. So it's hard to believe, but this month it is the 89th anniversary of the disaster. So next year is going to be the anniversary, and I suspect the 100 will be even more. So I've known Peggy for 20 years. People think that we're related. We aren't. We're what I call sisters of the heart. And Victoria, her real sister, her biological sister, is here today too. We have a dignitary who happens to be my husband, so we don't need to introduce him. Jonathan Sharkey, the city council. Okay, I'm so excited to introduce Peggy, and I'm so glad that she agreed to give her presentation here. She's been working on this for a number of years as a book, as a fiction book once, and then as a historical novel. She's also been working on it in a number of ways. Peggy is a journalist, and she's also a historian. So you probably heard the saying, journalism is the first draft of history. Well, she does the first and the last draft many times. And she's been on television, she's been everywhere, you can't believe it. And when I have lunch with her in Santa Paula, 20, 30 people come up and say hi. She knows everybody. I couldn't believe how many people she knew in this audience. You're going to enjoy her because she's a consummate storyteller. She is one of the few journalists I know that personally has a very finely honed BS meter, which is very important if you're a journalist. And she's also, she is able to interview and get to know and get people to trust her. She's done a number of investigative pieces for the Santa Paula Times. And remember that the Santa Paula Times is the only local newspaper that we have here that actually covers Santa Paula. We have a Hueneme pilot here that comes out when John gets around to it. Okay, without further ado, here's Peggy.
Thank you. And Beverly is a dear friend, and you're very lucky to have her in your wonderful town. I might add, fabulous museum. I've really enjoyed looking at everything so much, and I'm just enamored of your salt and pepper shaker collection. I really like it. And as far as storytelling, I don't know how to break this to my sister, but she's not my biological sister. No, just kidding. But anyway, like I said, I really appreciate you inviting me here today. It's a very controversial subject, the St. Francis Dam. And what I'm going to start out with, I'm just going to, and I do have a display over there. I've got a piece of the dam. I've got photographs, original photographs from the disaster, movie poster, recreations, some actual authentic lobby cards from Thornton's career. And I also have in my possession the medal he was awarded by the state of California for heroism that somebody gave to me to hold for him because he knew it meant so much to me. I feel like I know Thornton even though he's been dead quite a while. And Thornton Edwards was the hero of the St. Francis Dam disaster, and then he became Santa Paula's chief of police. But then some bad men died, and Thornton's good name died. Bad men lied, and Thornton's good name died, and he rode his motorcycle back to Hollywood. And that's a little, I don't know if it's a poem, it's a song. I used to sing it to my cat, and his name was Thornton. And so Thornton Edwards, I feel, is almost like a member of the family. And here we go. And I'll take questions after the presentation of the video. This is a documentary I put together in a hurry. Strange differences in King.
There's a microphone next
Volume.
to the speaker.
For eternity, each is given a list of rules, a shapeless mass, a bag of tools, and each must fashion, her life is flung, a stumbling block or a stepping stone. Although the life of Thornton Edwards would make a riveting film, chances are the real-life hero of the St. Francis Dam disaster and B-movie actor would not have been considered for the title role. Born in 1894 as George Thornton Edwards II to Maine privilege, the boy, here 14 years old with a paperclip scar, was the eldest of 5 siblings. He was especially close to his mother Carol and sister Jude White. Carol led the 1916 effort of the National Longfellow Clubs to save the famed poet's Portland, Maine birthplace. She rallied 700 clubs to purchase the home and keep it from becoming a boarding house for those of questionable character that might seek shelter in Portland's city of then 52,369 people. Wealthy businessman George Sr. had a passion for music, was a choir leader and composer. One of his works is often mistakenly attributed as Maine's state song. He was also a writer and expert on Longfellow, a poet he revered with a passion that bordered on the fanatic. George authored The Youthful Haunts of Longfellow, still used for studies of the great American poet. Edwards even went so far as to purchase the home of the poet's brother, Alexander, the famed Highfield estate, often visited by the poet. With the family in residence one night, Highfield caught fire and burned to the ground. It was a fate that had also befallen George's plant that manufactured fine furniture. Young George could not match wits with his highly intellectual father. It is likely the satirical poem written by George Sr. about a boy who couldn't spell was aimed at his then 12-year-old son, who soon adopted the exclusive use of his middle name, Thornton. Almost unknown today, Bessie Barriscale was a megastar of early silent film. It was a feather in Thornton's cap that what seems to be his first movie role was playing opposite the film Beauty. The kiss they exchanged for the 1916 film Home was reported in the newspapers, hungry for any news of the flickers. It was Thornton's first mention in the press. His dark, verging on handsome good looks led to many films, and whether drama, western, romance, or intrigue, Thornton played them all. Ethel Hopper caught Thornton's eye, and the couple married in 1916, news seen as pressworthy. Ethel claimed an accented bathing beauty pedigree, those giggly gals famous for rolling their stockings below the line of decency. Speaking of decency, Thornton appeared in a 1921 film so risque that it helped bring about censorship. Man-Woman Marriage managed to emphasize marital relations between men and women who were not married. Thornton was always good press. When making a film for director William Bodine, Thornton, an able stuntman, cautioned the director that even if hurt, to leave him alone after he took a staged motorcycle spill. In the spectacular stunt, machine and rider became as mixed as scrambled eggs, noted a newspaper. How was that? Thornton asked the director, who replied, "Okay, but I guess we better do it again to make sure." It's probably later that the director was nicknamed One Shot Bodine. In 1921, Thornton was doing a series of comedy shorts, but it was apparent that with a growing family, it was time to find a new role. Thornton joined the Santa Paula Police Department in 1922 as a motorcycle officer and moved Ethel and their son, George III, to town. It was soon apparent that Thornton was a no-nonsense, equal opportunity cop who relished cracking down on lawbreakers, whether plain Joes or big city lawyers. Thornton even arrested a county justice for a traffic violation. His prowess as an officer was so greatly admired in police circles that Thornton was appointed a state motor officer, the precursor to the California Highway Patrol, in 1927, assigned to the Santa Clara River Valley region. William Mulholland's St. Francis Dam had just filled with more than 12 billion gallons of water for the first time when the inferior structure suffered a catastrophic collapse just before midnight, March 12, 1928. The Santa Paula Daily Chronicle thundered that the incident was manslaughter, but the death toll would have been much greater if Thornton and others had not warned residents of the coming wall of doom that, when it reached Santa Paula, was a mixture of water, mud, trees, bodies, houses, autos, and other wreckage. By the time the sun came up on March 13th, Thornton, who had just bought a new Indian motorcycle, was being hailed as the Paul Revere of the St. Francis Dam disaster. The moniker was ironic. Paul Revere's ride about the Revolutionary War hero who warned the British were coming was reportedly Thornton's father's favorite Longfellow poem. With news of the approaching flood, Thornton first made sure his family was safe on high ground and then took charge of warning the populace near the river with fellow officer Stanley Baker. To speed evacuations, Thornton devised a plan to visit every third house and have the resident warn those on either side. When coming across a crowd of people on the Willard Bridge eagerly awaiting the show, Thornton chased them away right before the mighty floodwaters destroyed the structure. Among the hundreds who offered help to Santa Paulans after the disaster was Bessie Bearscale, Thornton's old co-star. It is unknown if she and Thornton met. Although there were many heroes of the St. Francis Dam disaster, there was something about Thornton, perhaps his square jaw, dazzling smile, and the quiet dignity and pride conveyed when in uniform, that caught the imagination of the public. His cap firmly set upon abundant dark hair, and the mustache that emphasized perfect white teeth was the ideal match for the shiny badge, sand brown belt, laced boots, and joggers that finished the picture of a man who steeplechased the disaster, and won. But the Edwards 8th Street home was swept away and destroyed. After submitting a detailed 12-page claim form for personal possessions that required proof of purchases and character endorsements, Thornton received a $2,809.22 settlement. On January 1st, 1929, Thornton became Santa Paula's second police chief, a starring role that seemed perfectly matched to his temperament and ambition. In between regular duties, Thornton worked on advanced fingerprint technology and the use of photography in police work that became models for other agencies. He was also recognized as a talented raconteur and dialect comedian, eagerly sought for high-profile dedications, roasts, and banquets, including as MC in an event for the governor of California. Thornton was a progressive chief who even purchased tear gas equipment. "I hope we never have to use the tear gas," he told the newspapers, "but you can never tell when it will come in handy to dispense mobs." Soon Thornton learned that one mob he could not dispense was the majority of the city council, perhaps unhappy that he had broken up an illegal gentleman's card game on the third floor of the Glen Tavern Inn. It was possible that some elected leaders, already jealous of their high-profile popular chief, felt prosecuting the friend who organized the games was the last straw. Being Santa Paula's police chief was a role Thornton could have played forever, but the lights dimmed on his marquee of life. Thornton was fired in 1939 in spite of a groundswell of community and business support, thundering editorials, and threats of council recalls and grand jury investigations that took the community some time to recover from. Famed film director John Ford was likely a boyhood acquaintance of Thornton's. Ford's father had been a Portland area barkeep, while Thornton's father was rumored to be a barkeep's best friend, and the boys were about the same age. Thornton returned to films by running the camp for background extras, known as eating props, for Ford's 1939 Guns Along the Mohawk. Ford used Thornton again, but this time on screen in his acclaimed Grapes of Wrath, released in 1940. Thornton's name graced local advertisements and the marquee of Santa Paula's Glen City Theater, where he was billed as ex-Chief Thornton Edwards. He had a memorable scene as a police officer who kills a man, and, according to the Santa Paula Chronicle, When the chief finished speaking his 4 lines and faded, the audience shrieked and applauded its approval and went out to tell its friends about Thornton being in the movies. He played role after role, some good-sized ones in B movies and smaller parts in A productions, and Thornton worked steadily and diversely. His name continued to crop up in news about Hollywood, blurbs that occasionally mentioned that Thornton had been a real-life police chief, but never anything about his role in the St. Francis stand. But that night was never far from Thornton's mind. While filming 3 Men from Texas, considered the best, albeit darkest, Hopalong Cassidy film, Thornton broke down during a scene where he was comforting his dying daughter. Although required to express grief with tears, as the scene progressed, Thornton sobbed and was unable to stop. Perhaps the death of his sweet-faced screen daughter reminding him of a darker night that was not make-believe when he cradled a dying dam disaster victim. Thornton was taken to a hospital and treated for emotional hysteria before he could resume filming. In The Panther's Claw, Thornton got excellent reviews for his handy portrayal of a passionate Italian opera star, but he took a break for World War II duty, picking up a Navy-issued billy club to patrol Long Beach. He and Ethel were reunited with their son George, who survived during the Battle of Midway when he was blown off the USS Yorktown. Back in the movies, Thornton, second from right, appeared in several Cisco Kid films where he and Pin Martin, far left, were later confused by the movie-going public, which could explain their steely glare. Thornton's happiness was obvious when he was by Gene Autry's side in a horse opera, and in a later odor when reunited with famed former Senate Keystone cop Andy Clyde. But as the century crawled past its mid-mark, Thornton's career, more than 120 films and credits surfacing all the time, was pretty much over. In their later years, Thornton and Ethel moved to Tulare County. The Edwards were guests of honor at a 50-year anniversary of St. Francis Dam disaster survivors, organized by acclaimed journalist Don Ray. On February 1st, 1988, 93-year-old Thornton took his final ride. Ethel died 5 years later, at age 98. The years passed. When the Santa Paula Police Department created a memorial monument, I purchased a brick for Thornton. Terry Foley got Thornton's prize medal for St. Francis Dam bravery, thought to be lost, in a hotly contested eBay auction. Thornton? Well, Thornton got the shaft. Always modest about his role in the disaster, Thornton probably would have objected when it was proposed in the mid-1990s that a symbolic statue to memorialize the St. Francis disaster be of him alone. He needn't have bothered. When the statue was announced, dubious accusations regarding his dismissal as police chief surfaced. Thornton was accused of racism, an allegation later supplanted by accusations of drunkenness. If drunkenness created the benchmark to deny recognition, well, there probably wouldn't be a statue in the entire United States of America. On a busy corner in Santa Paula, and visible from my home, is The Warning by Eric Richards. The forged steel statue of 2 motorcycle officers meant to honor the heroes, survivors, and dead of the St. Francis Dam disaster. From certain angles, the statue shot is framed by railroad crossing arms. One of the 2 motorcyclists seeming to look back at me through the distance. The accusations against Thornton had abruptly changed the work to 2 anonymous motorcycle officers. Although the one ascribed the Indian undoubtedly is Thornton, and Officer Stanley Baker rides the Harley, neither hero garners credit for his role. It was Thornton's last chance to finally get that top woman.
I also took a photo of this. Yeah, no problem.
and he rode off. Does anybody have any questions about the St. Francis Dam disaster or about Thornton Edwards? It certainly has been something that's increasingly been in the news after being an incident that was all but forgotten.
Where exactly was the St. Francis Dam?
The St. Francis Dam is in Santa Clarita. If you were at Magic Mountain, it's about 10 miles out from Magic Mountain. And I don't have any sense of direction, but I know that I wouldn't want to be there when the dam broke.
The flood path, we've got a little tiny one where it says Barnesdale. We have a little tiny card at the
okay.
bottom that shows the flood path.
Yes, it was in the same, San Francisco Canyon, and it was a very narrow canyon, and it had very high walls. So when the dam went, the floodwaters originally going through that canyon were about 150 feet high, and it broke 2 minutes before midnight on March 12th, 2 minutes before midnight over to March 13th. And Santa Paula, 1928, and Santa Paula wasn't notified until about 1:30. And then the floodwaters hit Santa Paula about 3 o'clock in the morning, going about 18, 20 miles an hour. Yeah, Laura?
So what year was this? Was 1928?
Eight.
And then what was the method of communication?
And of course, Laura had been an emergency management person for the county of Ventura, so of course she's going to ask about how come they didn't know about that? What's that all about? Well, what happened was they had the power plants there at the dam itself, and that was what generated the power. So the electricity all went out. So there was no electricity. But then what happened was there's different stories. Even though they were able to start notifying people in LA, supposedly Santa Paula only heard about it because somebody picked up a ham radio communication. Now whether or not that's true, I don't know, but they did have the Hello Girls who were the operators, and they started calling and saying, you know, on the party lines and the whole thing. And they had some interesting characters that were involved there too, as far as the Hello Girls, as they were called then. Yes?
Where are those statues located?
The statue was located, that statue, by the way, is called a Warning, and it's located in Santa Paula on the corner of Santa Barbara and 10th Street. And it's a beautiful little statue.
It's right by that ball.
Yeah, there's just east of it there's a floating ball, as they call it, which weighs about, I don't know, 6 tons, 3 tons, something like that. And it's from, I don't even know how to describe it, but it floats on water. So if you have kids, bring them too, because or just yourself, it's a lot of fun.
Who's the designer of that monument?
Eric Richards of Santa Paula. Yes.
What was the total casualty count? Did they figure out what?
The total casualty account, as far as people that they actually found, is about 435. I maintain, though, that it's probably at least 600, because there were people living in the riverbed. There's somewhere in Santa Clarita, they even uncovered a car in 1995 that they realized had been swept away. So there was so much silt afterwards that it's not possible that they found all the bodies. It's just impossible that they were able to find all the bodies. And it was, a lot of them, they recovered a lot of people in Santa Paula because a lot of them made it that far. Santa Paula itself, I think, had 19 people killed, but they recovered a lot more bodies in the area. Yes? Fillmore was also hit. You know, it was hit hard. Now, Fillmore, though, was built a little higher above the riverbed. And when it went through, it just, but I don't have the number right with me, but they suffered losses too. The biggest single loss was at the camp. It was a SCE camp, and it was Camp Kemp. And they had 85 men that were killed, and there was no way to warn them, and they were just all in their pub tents. I think they had a few that made it, and that was it.
How much of Santa Paula was damaged and destroyed by
Oh.
the waters?
Millions and millions, at least 1,000 buildings, some damaged, some completely destroyed.
Along the Santa Clara River?
Along the Santa Clara River. The floodwaters went as high as where Isbell Middle School is, which is now Harvard Boulevard, which at one time was called River Street. And there's photos of the dam waters, how they moved a house right up against Isbell Middle School, which is north of Harvard Boulevard, which at the time, so they've gone up pretty high. And there were a lot of people that were living close to the riverbed at that time. And Thornton himself, as it showed, he lost his house. Now, I've made a few pronunciation and dyslexia type mistakes in my video. Thornton only got $2,086. And people, the way they figured, just as an interesting side note, the way they figured how people's losses were, if you had, let's say, this hat, and I said, well, I lost my hat. And well, how much did you pay for it? I paid $3 for it. Well, how long have you had that hat? Well, I've had it 3 years. Oh, okay, it's worth 50 cents now. You know, they wouldn't, so it was really petty the way they settled with people. Oh, you had a bed? Yeah, I had 2 beds. Well, okay, well, how much did it cost you, you know, how old were the beds? Oh, well, the American Red Cross gave me a couple of beds. Oh, okay, well, you can't put that on your claim. And Thornton actually got $2,000. That was just for personal possessions. And he was considered, you know, a policeman in those days. Just like now, they don't make as much as they should, but they did make a little more. Yes?
Did I mess up El Rio at all?
Pardon me?
El Rio?
Oh, yeah, I went through El Rio. Yeah. But, you know, by then it was slowing down quite a bit, and people were, you know, it spilled into the Pacific Ocean at about 5 o'clock in the morning. And people, as you know, once it got past Santa Paula, people had better warning, and they were getting out of the way. But the whole area was just swept away. You know.
The wall of water was how high?
Well, when it first broke, it was about 150 feet high, and then when it came through here, it spread out in the riverbed. So it was spread out, and it wasn't that it was, and so it was pretty high, because you know where Harvard Boulevard is. In Santa Paula, it was up past that. So it was pretty, you know, it was 13 billion gallons of water, so.
I think you're right about your 600 too. It's closer to that. So we put that on there, we put 400 to 600.
Yeah, oh, absolutely. And there's a wonderful gal named Ann Stanzel, and she's done a wonderful study, and she's tracked down every single documented, she has helped document every single victim that was known at the time, and found out where they were, where their final resting place is, if they were recovered. And she's just done a wonderful job, but it kind of reminds me of the San Francisco earthquake, which of course they like to call the San Francisco earthquake and fire, or better yet, even the fire, because that's not a natural disaster, and they were afraid people would move to San Francisco after it if it had an earthquake. But anyway, there was a gal, and she went ahead and she did a study, and she found out that there were actually at least 2, 3, I forget the exact number, 1,000 more people killed than they'd ever really reported. Yes?
Were most of the people interned in the city where they lived?
Well, they have yes, most of them were interned in where they lived, and they did have unknown victims that were buried in Santa Paula. They had a big a mass funeral in Santa Paula for, I think, I don't know, maybe 20 victims. They had another one at Ivy Lawn in Ventura. And but most people were, and actually, one thing they did pay for was to return people. Let's say if they were visiting, or if they wanted them to be buried somewhere back east or in the Midwest with their family, they would go ahead and send them back there for free. You had a question, sir?
Did Mulholland suffer any consequences as a result of that?
Boy,
Yeah.
I wouldn't think so in a way. I mean, I think he was heartbroken. Of course you're going to be heartbroken. He was not prosecuted. They all should have been prosecuted for criminal negligence as far as I'm concerned. And they knew that they had a problem with the dam. The dam actually, by the time it was 60% filled, it was starting to have what most people would say, you know, there's a major problem here. And more than just leaks, all dams leak, we've heard all that. But what really and actually what Mulholland did was he resigned in disgrace, but he didn't leave the building until the following November, with, you know, proclamations from a grateful Los Angeles clutched in his hand. And I mean, and I'm sure he was heartbroken. I mean, don't get me wrong, you would have to be, nobody ever intended for that dam to fail. But they were so desperate to get that up as soon as possible. The concrete was bad itself. The location was bad. They knew better in those days. And I know that they keep saying, well, you know, they didn't know, but actually what happened was, and this was kind of interesting, and I picked this up off one of the death claims, and the caretaker of the dam's name, I can't pronounce his last name, was Tony, and his little boy and his girlfriend was living with him. And her husband, she had left her husband to live with Tony. So he had filed a claim with Los Angeles saying, well, she was legally his wife and this was a loss, and they had a daughter that luckily he had custody of at the time. And so it went around and around. So they were like, you know, even like with Thornton's claim, or anybody's claim, well, you need personal references. So I guess that means if somebody didn't like you, you wouldn't get any money. I never could quite figure that out. But anyway, they wanted personal references to make sure that you weren't a liar and claiming more than your loss. But anyway, this one with Tony's girlfriend, Lorena, I think her name was, got very convoluted. And then months and months later, when her husband was trying to collect, one of the witnesses told the insurance company, and this claim showed up, and that, well, and he had been the fire chief of Los Angeles, this man, so you would figure that he would be fairly, you know, honest. And he said, well, he had only spoken to her a few times, and one time she had called was the day the dam broke, and she called him at about 6 p.m. and told him that Mulholland had been out earlier with Van Norman, and they'd inspected the dam, and there were a lot of problems with the dam, and Tony couldn't leave and he couldn't go hunting with him that weekend. Tony wanted him to call, and he was at the dam right then, and they wanted him to look at that dam now 3 times a day. So they always wondered why Tony was at the dam. They figured the 3 of them were at the foot of the dam at the time it broke. So the way I felt was, well, Mulholland and Van Norman were there at about noon, left at about noon, or were there at about noon. He would go back and inspect it again at 6 p.m. if he was going to do it 3 times a day. And then he'd go back again at midnight and inspect it, and that's when it blew. But that shows that there was some knowledge that there was a horrible problem with that dam going on. That man would tell that, and nobody ever picked it up, that, you know, and it's all in black and white. So it's very hard to say, and of course they couldn't say, Los Angeles couldn't say, oh yeah, well boy, we knew this was a real problem, because then their liability would have just been worse than it was by tenfold. And they also could have been, as far as I'm concerned, they also should have been prosecuted for criminal negligence. You know, when they brought in the aqueduct was sold to the people who paid a tax to build the aqueduct as something to supply water to Los Angeles. Well, little did they know then, when they brought the aqueduct in, where'd they bring the aqueduct in? They brought it up near Valencia. Well, that wasn't Los Angeles yet, but they were going to annex that area and annex the San Fernando Valley and all those areas, so that was the water source for the annexation for the new Los Angeles. So there's always been something a little iffy about it, so, but that's just me. Yes?
What, if anything, has taken the place of that dam?
They put up something else, and I even forget where it is. It's but nothing along those lines. And also, that was another reason for trying to bury the whole issue of the culpability or the problem with the dam itself, was because they were just getting ready to. They were already lobbying for the Hoover Dam. So they were worried about whether or not the public might be frightened now about having such a huge dam. So yeah, they did build something, but it was nothing compared to the St. Francis.
Reminds you of Oroville.
Yes, oh yeah, Oroville, yeah. Well, that was brought up quite a bit. Yes.
I understand the dam was okay, but where the fires actually collapsed.
Yes. A, it never should have been put there, but B, they also used inferior cement. As a matter of fact, you'll see I've got a piece of the dam up there, and they were just going ahead and just dredging streams in the area for their concrete and so nothing's consistent. And you can look at it, you can see the air pockets around everything. So the water was seeping into it, and it was actually like soaking the dam itself. And there was a man named Thomas McMullen, who's with the University of Maryland, and he did a blind test of the St. Francis Dam. He had it blind tested, and they said it was the worst concrete. They couldn't believe that anybody would have built anything. They didn't let they didn't grout in between layers in some places. I
Have you
mean,
heard about a landslide then?
oh yes, of course. And there's also theories out there too that the landslide could have been triggered by the collapse. Yeah, so I mean, so it's hard to say, but that was another thing. They knew at that point in time that that wasn't an ideal location, even though they say they didn't realize that then, but they did because they had reports on other locations where they wouldn't build dams. So yes, there was a landslide, but whether or not it happened first or second, they really don't know. The dam was going to go either way. Beverly.
I know you've done some extensive research. What was the most interesting factoid that
I would say that one of them was about Lorena and her plane, and and there I thought that was interesting, and but there's been several I've come across, and it's what they call a eureka moment where you just put it all together. So there's just been so many. It's kind of trying to even like look into Thornton and find out everything I can about Thornton, and there's never enough I can find out. But that's what happens with biographers, and basically it's like he's always going to be right in front of me on that motorcycle. I'm always going to see his back on that motorcycle, and it's like, well, I feel almost a little guilty because I'm not going to know everything. But when you really get right down to it, I'm all he's got at this point. So so yes.
I remember you telling me a story about some woman that had gone up there and photographed.
Oh, that's right. Thank you, Vicki. You are my sister. So, no, actually, there was a gal who had done a television interview, Santa Clara TV. It's called SCV TV, I think, Santa Clara Valley TV. It's an online TV station. They've got some wonderful interviews. And years ago, they did an interview with a gal, and she was up there on a picnic. The St. Francis Dam had become a very popular picnic area, and they even had references to it in the local paper about, the Teagues stopped and picnicked on their way home over at the St. Francis Dam. So she was there picnicking, and she looked over, and her father was in the concrete business. So she looked over, and she saw these guys had like a garden hose, and they were putting cement into a crack in the dam with the garden hose from a bucket. And she took pictures, she had photos, and you can tell it's the St. Francis Dam. And what they had done when they had realized that they had a problem with the dam, they started using oakum. And oakum is something that's like, I guess you can use anything from molasses to sap, which is about the same thing. One tastes better than the other though. And then pieces of rope, and they were shoving that into the, and you see they tried to do some fixes on the face of the dam instead of from inside the dam because they couldn't get into the inside the dam. But that was a plumber's fix. They tried a plumber's fix on something that was a huge dam. So they knew there was a problem. They were trying to pump cement into those crevices. And she's got photos. I mean, bless her heart. But
also designed the Mulholland Dam.
oh yes, in Hollywood. Yeah, the Hollywood Reservoir, which is the same design as the St. Francis Dam. He'd done that first. And then now with St. Francis Dam, there were no spillways either. And it had only been filled for about 2 weeks when it collapsed to the top. It had been finished for 2 years, but then it had only actually been filled for 2 weeks. But what they did with the Hollywood Dam, or the Hollywood Reservoir, and it's still called the Mulholland Dam, but they never use that anymore. But they went ahead and they lowered it immediately after the St. Francis collapsed. And then they went ahead and built a big berm in front of it and planted trees and all these pretty things. So it doesn't look like a dam at all. But of course, they're pretty sure it's pretty safe. At least we're all hoping that. Any other questions? Yes.
Yeah, there have been issues with concrete in Ventura County for decades because of what they call reactive aggregate. Of course, concrete is Portland cement and what they call aggregate, which is a local gravel, mostly at that time coming out in the El Rio area. And I used to work for Ventura School District. We had constantly issues with older concrete buildings. What happened is this aggregate has a very high phosphorus content in it. And when the water hits it and starts seeping in, it creates phosphoric acid, which actually eats the cement away. And so the concrete over years and decades starts crumbling in its own accord.
Oh, yeah, you'll have to look at the sample of the
Yeah,
dam.
I've seen
Oh, did you
similar.
see it? Yeah.
Ventura High School has.
And none of it's consistent size either. I mean, that's even
Yeah.
worse than just your regular acid-laden aggregate. This is uneven acid-laden,
Right.
laced aggregate probably.
But it has been an
Yeah.
ongoing issue.
Yeah,
all
it's
over the
amazing.
county, yeah.
It really is. Well, I know the first time I was ever up there and found a rock, and it was, which I'm not supposed to have, and I feel guilty, but not guilty enough to take it back. But anyway, I looked at it and I thought, what's wrong with this? You know, it just didn't look right. You know, you expect a chunk of concrete or whatever to look like something, and it was like, wow, and it was like, you know, I'm sure if you put it in the sink and put hot water on it and ran the water for a few days, it would probably break into 3 or 4 pieces. So that's pretty discouraging. Yes, sir.
I was going to say, it's an interesting drive today.
Yes. Uh-huh.
And it's still, I know they dynamite the centerpiece.
Yes. The tombstone.
Yeah, but the size of it is.
Yeah, they still have the sides up there, and what they tried to do though is they tried to get rid of as much as they could, blow up as much as they could that was on the ground. There's a couple of boulders there that they thought that, you know, they could fake those, and they've got even one that has steps on it. But yes, the tombstone, that was an interesting thing too, because how scary is that to have something and, you know, one side blew out, the other side blew out, but the tombstone stayed up in the middle. And I think the following May, or maybe even a little longer, a year maybe past that, they had a couple of young guys in their, you know, they're 18 or so, and they were, you know how kids are, they climbed it and all this jazz, and then one found a garter stake or something and wiggled it at the other guy, and he went back and was killed. So they said, well, you know, that's it, we got to get rid of that tombstone. So according to this Newhall Signal, the Newhall Signal and the LA Times have very different versions of what happened. Now that's another thing too, because don't forget that the Los Angeles Times, the Chandler family, the Harrison family, whatever, you know, they're all related. They were very, very big stakeholders in the development of the San Fernando Valley. Very big, owned all the land with a, you know, conglomerate, whatever. But anyway, so the Los Angeles Times reported that when they blew up the tombstone, that they very carefully laid all the dynamite at the foot, and they built a great big huge pit, and they blew it up, and it just tipped over, you know, and boom. And then they covered it up. According to the Signal, which was the Newhall paper, they put all the dynamite around the base of the tombstone, and when they let the dynamite go, it exploded into 1 million rocks. And, you know, so who do you believe? You know what I mean? I kind of believe the Signal personally, but that's just my personality, you know, but it was just kind of, you know, that just would show more about the weakness in the actual structure itself. Beverly.
What got you interested in this whole thing?
I was fascinated that nobody knew anything about it. And we heard about it when we were kids, because my dad, I don't know if he owned some property in Newhall or something like that, but I remember him telling me when I was a kid that there had been a big dam that, you know. And then when I moved to Santa Paula, and just had a little passing knowledge of the fact that this dam had come through, and I started to ask people, and most people had never even heard of it. So that's what really got me interested in it, to that, and it was suppressed. It was, you know, the information about the dam, it was suppressed over the years, over the decades, because it was an embarrassment to Los Angeles County. They've been complicit, or the city of Los Angeles, excuse me, they've been complicit, and they just wanted everybody to forget it ever happened. And you know, they always say, well, nobody ever sued, they paid everybody off. Well, you've seen a great example of how they paid people off, and they were sued. They were sued, and there were several lawsuits. And one family, a man had lost his wife and 5 children, and he put in a claim for $450,000. And I think they gave him $45,000. I think they gave him 10% or something like that. I mean, it's just really, it was
A little bit of favor from the city.
Yes, it probably would have if they, yeah, absolutely. And sadly enough, rightfully so. You know, maybe they could have given everybody the water rights that they'd swiped from Owens Valley and said, here, now you can have this on your soul, you know.
So what did you think of Chinatown?
Oh, what did I think of Chinatown? One of my favorite movies. Yeah, you know, it's interesting too, Chinatown, they do have, you know, of course, as you brought up, it is a great movie. I don't know if any of you have seen it. And it has some passing references to what could be the St. Francis Dam. And of course, we all know that there's the issue of incest. And, but it was kind of interesting because, you know, Mulholland was such a controlling person that he actually sued his daughter for custody of her child when she was married to a judge or something. And I guess, you know, that who knows, you know, it was in the wild days when people drank and probably did the Charleston and all that. Who knows, maybe she's a dope addict, I don't know. But it was just very unusual that somebody would sue somebody for custody like that, you know, and he, of course, being Mulholland, he was awarded custody, even though his son-in-law was a judge. And then everybody was happy, and the LA Times put a happy face on it, and everybody was happy, and all this jazz. And then when I learned more about the whole incident, and then of course about Thornton, and it made me think that, you know, and I don't blame Mulholland. I mean, Mulholland had done some wonderful things, and do you judge him by this one terrible mistake? And it was a mistake. And it was a mistake he realized, and that's where the mistake really started, was he realized there was a mistake and should have acted sooner, but I think he was in self-denial because he was Mulholland. He could fix anything, he could do anything. So after he dies, bless his heart, he died about 7 years later, and they put the Mulholland, I don't know if any of you have seen the Mulholland Memorial in LA, and it's got dancing waters, and they had a wonderful, you know, and of course one of the Chandlers, you know, sobbed as he was dedicating it from the Times. And, you know, he could barely get up on the stage, he had so much money in his pockets. But he sobbed, you know. But you know, and they had a wonderful tribute to him and talked about what a wonderful man he was. Well, you know, fast forward to Santa Paula 1995, and they say, well, you know what, we want to put a statue up and we're going to use Thornton Edwards. And then there's people in there saying, well, wait a minute, he was a racist. And it's like, well, what do you mean he was a racist? Well, he would go into markets and he'd steal canned hams and he'd take things and he'd push Mexicans off of sidewalks. And I said, well, wait a minute, when did you first hear about this? Somebody had come into the newspaper office and said, well, they can't do it because this and that. I said, you know, all the research I've ever done, this is the first I've ever heard anything at all about him being a racist. And so then it turns out, and then when you'd ask people, well, when did you first heard about this? Oh, I just heard it recently, like maybe 1995. And it was like he hadn't heard it before then? No, I hadn't heard it, so I don't quite know what was going on at that point in time. But they won't put a statue up and use Thornton, who was very modest about his role in the dam disaster, and would not go ahead and use him as the lone figure in the statue because I don't believe he was a racist. As a matter of fact, I think you noticed in the or perhaps you did, he had actually in Santa Paula when he was the chief of police, excuse me, he had come across these street festivals and he'd always go and he'd talk to the Mexicans. He'd gone to a very progressive primary school back in Massachusetts. But anyway, so he said, why don't you guys have this downtown? And it was like, oh, they don't want us downtown. So there's newspaper clippings about how Thornton went to the council and asked them to allow them to have their festival, their fiesta, downtown. So that doesn't strike me as somebody who's racist at all. And then I found a picture, it's one of those pictures of him in his sombrero costume and the whole thing, as they call it in the business, one of his headshots. And it's very, very carefully made out in Spanish, and it's to his mother on her birthday. And when you flip it over, it's got the pencil marks where he was very careful to make sure he got every single word right. And that just doesn't, I would think a racist wouldn't even use that. You know what I mean? I guess that means I'm off. Oh, okay.
I think that often happens politically. I think your political enemies will also decide to go after the one thing you're kind of proud of. I bet she was the opposite of that.
Yeah, well, there was a lot of unrest in Santa Paula in the mid-90s, unfortunately, and it was a very sad time, and it was very sad.
Well, wasn't the lemon strike going on around that time?
No, the lemon strike was, I think, in the 70s.
Well, I think there was one in the 1930s.
Oh, they're probably, oh, I see, with that time, I think in the 1995, I was saying, wow, a lemon strike, how did I miss that? Yeah, probably.
My family group was.
Yes, her family's been here for generations.
Yeah, my grandfather was one of those knocking on doors. And
Yeah.
people. So he.
Is that when they brought in all the Okies? Excuse me for anyone from Oklahoma, but that's what they call them. Yeah, yeah. And was that in the 30s?
I think so.
Yeah.
I remember writing a paper on it from college.
That mountain range
My
went
nephew
up.
and I had invited them.
Did they ever mention the police, or did they mention Thornton Edwardson
Well,
specifically?
my grandfather was notified by the police to get out when the dam broke.
Sure.
And then he went on and notified others.
Mhm.
Non-relatives, or we lost relatives. Yeah,
It's terrible.
He couldn't be a racist if he was knocking on, the doors of Mexicans and telling them to
Yeah.
get out, right?
Oh, yeah,
So.
yeah.
he would've been-
Oh, yeah, and the funny thing is did you read, I'm sure you read Martha Machenka's book that she wrote, The Outsider, I guess it was called, and it was all about Mexican history in Santa Paula, and you can get it online. And I don't agree with her book because of the fact that there's things that happened before I was born, and all the United States was fairly racist. I mean, let's be real. Everybody's got to hate somebody, it's just whose turn it is. And, but she wrote about things that supposedly had happened with the police and it happened with this, but she never mentioned Thornton Edward's name. And she researched her book, and that was released in 1995, and I think that had something to do with the unrest. It opened a lot of old wounds that were probably deservedly so old wounds. But that's something, let's change the subject. Let's talk about sex.
Safer subject.
So the kitchen, they do it while it's.
Oh, yeah, well, on South Mountain, that was a great big meeting place. That was in the 20s. And they would have them come from Santa Barbara. Some of the nicest people belonged to the Ku Klux Klan in those days. They would come from Santa Barbara, and they had, South Mountain was the perfect place to put your burning cross, I guess, So, no, but they did. They had Ku Klux Klan. They had Ku Klux Klan everywhere. That was another thing. So what I'm saying is I don't think Santa Paula was all that different. Yes, sir.
I just spoke with a lady whose name was Mrs. Rita McClure. She lived here in the 20s, and she said that they had collection places where they brought the bodies for identification. In other words, they brought a central place where people could come
Yes.
to identify the bodies, not kind of all scattered around.
Well, they had like one in Newhall, and it was a dance hall in Newhall. They had a lot of victims out in that area too, so they had a dance hall in Newhall that they converted into. They had they had 2 morgues.
Yeah, temporary morgues, right?
Right, temporary morgues. They had,
Yes.
Glen Tavern and,
yeah, and actually Santa Paula Inn at that point was a mortuary. Yeah.
Really?
Yes, it was. And actually, it was owned by a guy named Skillen. His family's name was Skillen. And I talked to him. He died at like 98, I don't know, maybe 10 years ago. Lovely guy, Hal Skillen. And that his father had just bought the business and opened it up 2 weeks before the dam broke. Wow. Yeah, so no, they had a lot of different places. There's even footage that shows people going into the dance hall in Newhall and trying to identify victims. And as you saw, they were all wrapped up like, corn tortillas. It was very sad, and they would unwrap them and make sure they would wash them off so the limbs they wouldn't appear as dead. I mean, it was just a tragic, tragic time.
I heard they were still picking them out of trees.
Oh yeah, picking them out of trees, and I mean, it was terrible, and most of them had no clothes on because of the force of the water and the debris. The debris itself would just strip them. I mean, it was just awful. Yes, sir.
I guess there's a book that the county has. There's a series of books that I'm not sure what it is, but it's a series. There's one on the San Francisco Dam, They did the one, they do one like on Oxnard.
Picture.
Oh, yeah, Arcadia Publications, yes, John Nichols is a very close friend of
That's a
mine.
very good book if
Yes.
people want to go into it.
Yes, that was, the Arcadia series, and my very dear friend, I even gave him a little hug in there, John Nichols did that, and he had a wonderful collection of photographs that he had collected over the years, and some of the photographs I have in my personal collection. I also have in my, over there's a picture of actually Thornton at his house, which has been destroyed. But that's a wonderful book, The Arcadia. It's kind of like, everything you ever wanted to know about the St. Francis Dam. Now, where I come from with the dam, I'm a little controversial as far as what I feel happened, but there's some very good books out. Probably the best one is Man-Made Disaster by Charles Outland that was written in the 60s. And then there's a new one called Heavy Ground, which is wonderful, and that's by Jackson, I think his name is. And then there's another one by John Wolfman, and I can't remember what the name of his book is, but... Flood Path, thank you. Flood Path by John Wolfman. And so there's excellent books. A lot of it's the same thing, interviews with the survivors and stuff like that. And after all, that's what it's all about, really, when you get right down to it, is the lives that were lost. That's what it's all about. Yes, sir. Or are you just adjusting your camera?
Just adjusted the camera.
Oh, okay. Any other questions?
Further research, we can find out why he really was skipping every third house.
Yes, well... A conspiracy theorist, I know when we show up.
We didn't hear it back.
There you go, good job.
What was the question? I didn't hear it.
Needs a
Why
lot
was
of
he
you.
really skipping it?
That's it? Okay, thank you so very much. I'm really pleased and proud that you allowed me to come and share the morning with you and talk about such a depressing subject. So let's eat and go get drunk.
This is my kind of girl.
Because you're a storyteller, we have quite a few that live here. And of course, Dorothy Ramirez and Helen Grant were two of them, and Bob Brandon. Remember you like that name?
Yes. Oh, thank you so very much. Thank you. Thank you.
John's going to pass the hat. As you know, we run on donations, so he will come by and pass a hat. And
Beverly usually does this, and she's a lot more traffic than I am. I hope you won't hold that against me.
it's good. He's good. Thank you so much, and stick around if you want to see the museum or you want to ask Peggy some questions. You can do that.
Oh, well.